startups in Israel. These days we're launching our first institutional fund called the iAngels Ingenuity Fund, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today to share some of my observations about the fast-changing VC landscape and how it's going to dramatically change everything we know about investing. Now, one transformation that we may all be aware of is the fact that we're facing the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in history, with over 30 trillion US dollars looking to exchange hands over the course of the next couple of decades. So it's not only that exennials and millennials are coming into their own wealth as business professionals, they're going to inherit the estates of their baby boomer parents, thereby creating a huge migration of power and how they're looking at investments, and what I like to call is like the new LP. Now, based on JP Morgan research, we learned that millennials have a completely different set of values and aspirations for investment than their parents. Over 86% of millennials are actually interested to invest in sustainability technologies. They have a very strong focus on social and environmental responsibility. And they're also concerned with some of the challenges that we're familiar with in kind of like the more traditional VC, such as transparency and liquidity. I mean, they want to gain back control over investments and how to navigate their investments, but also they want to make sure that they can liquidate the moment they feel like it, because they're used to being able to move money around with a click of a button. So we need to understand that these rapid changes in how the young, kind of like younger millennials are going to conduct their investments is going to make money managers have to really change and adapt. Now, if I'm looking at kind of like this millennial generation, it's not only about creating a new type of investor, but it's actually also changing the kind of products and innovation around which companies and ecosystems will be built. And these values are breeding a whole new type of entrepreneur. Now, we need to think about these new themes that are emerging, and what kind of interesting elements do entrepreneurs seek to engage in? Where is the talent navigating to? Now, children today are growing in a world where exennials and millennials are running billion-dollar companies. Mark Zuckerberg was 20 years old when he founded Facebook. The founders of Snapchat, Adam Neumann, is like a big success story coming out of Israel. He founded WeWork that was sold for $15 billion. So these children today are growing up in a world where millennials are running the world. Some of the most exciting and most innovative companies in the world. Now, if we're looking, for instance, about new types of tech or new type of technologies, we want to see some things, that is considered to be pivotal, on the innovation curve. Things, for instance, like the autonomous vehicle. So the autonomous vehicle, soon, everybody's talking about it. In a couple of years, we'll see autonomous cars driving up and down the street. It seems so monumental on a global scale. But perhaps this is all really going to be a blimp on the innovation curve as the world is going to move to newer technologies like the flying car, for example. And what kind of changes and what kind of companies are going to emerge from that kind of breakthrough? What does it mean about real estate repurposing if we don't have any roads? What kind of changes can we try to anticipate? And perhaps avatar or VR technologies are going to completely enable us to avoid transportation altogether. So these kinds of things that we need to think about the new themes and the new way that entrepreneurs are looking at innovation is going to create a very different and very dynamic ecosystem. Now, in order for the VCs to understand and better relate to this kind of like new entrepreneur and the younger entrepreneur, there are massive changes that also need to be done on the VC level. So we see several trends happening. One is actually the VCs are trying to hire younger partners who can really relate to these millennial entrepreneurs and connect to them on an eye-to-eye basis. So in Israel, you see many of the kind of like older generation VC funds paving way to the new with new succession plans, and also a lot of new emerging VCs with a significantly younger partner base. You see this on a global scale as well. This is a global phenomenon. We, in our research, have identified over 30 top VCs in the world who have hired investment partners who are younger than 30 years old. So this is quite, a revolution. And the funds that are preparing for this kind of like a new type of entrepreneur are going to be the ones who will be able to fight over talent. I mean, some funds have a healthier partner demographic, like Anderson Horowitz or Lightspeed, but others have a lot to do in order to close that generation gap. And Kleiner Perkins, for instance, have admitted to have missed out on a wave of generation-defining startups because of internal focus and structure. And so the funds who don't take this into consideration might themselves, miss out on a wave of innovation, a very important innovation. Another theme that is very interesting is actually how VC funds are exploring new themes that they were not previously part of their mandate, such as investing in blockchain technology or investing in social impact, and really exploring different avenues for investment, because they understand that there's a migration of talent into these new themes, and unless they're going to be there, they're really going to miss out on some great opportunities. Another major driver to change in the VC landscape is the abundance of solutions for capital raise. So in the beginning, maybe several years ago, and I know this is in Australia here, it's still considered a relatively young VC industry. It was all maybe like equity and debt investments, but there's such an abundance of financial instruments today by which entrepreneurs seek to raise capital. I'm not even going to go over all of these different instruments, but even if we just consider the amount of partners that entrepreneurs have today when they search for capital raise, it's really quite extraordinary. You have the traditional VC funds. Some funds are more focused on specific company stage or specific sector. Others, we have like local investors. Angel investors used to be super local. Now they're global investors investing everywhere in the world. You see an abundance of platforms, crowdfunding, lending platforms, syndication, acceleration programs, corporate venture arms, and the list goes on and on and on. So with the abundance of instruments, entrepreneurs today understand that there are limitless opportunities, and as a result, money is no longer king. They're looking for the right kind of partner, and because they're building big companies, they're really strategic about how they're going to construct their cap tables and who they're going to bring on board. If we consider the evolution of some of these structures that were introduced maybe only 10 years ago, like the crowdfunding platforms and the lending platforms, we saw just recently in 2017 a whole new type of instrument by which to raise capital, the ICO, the initial coin offering, which really took the world by storm. 2017 was the year of the ICOs, and for people who are less familiar with it, it's really very similar to initial public offering. It means that the company is going public, but many times this is the very first round of finance the company ever had, even before it has a significant team and product. So just think about it, it's almost at the reverse. The company is listed, but it has very little traction, if any, and not even a product out there. So we, in our research, really compared that to angel investing. And looking at the chart here behind me, you can see that there's a great deal of money flowing into these ICO opportunities in 2017, whereas angel investing, which is the comparable kind of like early stage investing, stayed relatively consistent. So what does this mean? So maybe again, kind of like this younger investor is flowing in, is redirecting some of their wealth into these alternative investments or alternative ways for investing. Here, I want to take a minute to consider some of these larger companies that have been successful. They've raised a significant round of finance. They're sitting on piles of cash. And it's it's far beyond anything they're ever going to need in order to run their operation. And so as a result, they're carving out a nostro. They're investing in younger projects that have an affiliation with their business or their products, and they're creating stronger ecosystems. Now, these are not professional money managers. These are entrepreneurs who are investing in entrepreneurs. So again, we see a whole new trend of what is kind of like the VC of the future going to look like. Now, the unicorns of today, if we want to consider them, they really were, they started by these entrepreneurs who were visionaries, who saw something into the future, who identified tectonic shifts and opportunities maybe like 10 or more years ago. Now, today, when we consider these opportunities and some investors missing out on investing in opportunities like Uber and Airbnb, and there are many kind of like war stories about how they, the one that got away and that people thought that they were crazy when they came up with these new business models or new innovative ideas. Now, the VCs that are today identifying or recognizing at least where we're heading with this like changes in the landscape are really going to be the ones who are going to be able to invest in the unicorns of tomorrow and take part in a much more diversified and dynamic and inclusive and global VC world. And I believe that this is where we'll all be heading. And thank you for listening today, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Please welcome to the stage Paul Mason from Paradise.